Operation Black Swan. Operation Black Swan was a joint U.S.-Mexican Special Forces mission in February 2014 that resulted in the capture of Joaquín El Chapo Guzmán, the elusive head of the Sinaloa cartel and one of the world's most powerful drug lords. For over a decade, Guzmán had evaded capture through a network of safe houses, corrupt officials, and elaborate tunnels that allowed him to slip away whenever authorities closed in. His capture was considered one of the most significant victories in the long struggle against international drug trafficking. The operation followed months of intelligence gathering by Mexican Marines working closely with the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration and other American agencies. Surveillance identified Guzman's movements through the city of Mazatlan, where he maintained a luxury condo despite his reputation for vanishing into rural strongholds. Mexican Marines moved quickly, surrounding the building in the early hours of February 22nd. Armed with intelligence that revealed Guzman's exact location, the assault force breached the condo complex and advanced floor by floor with overwhelming speed. Unlike previous manhunts where Guzman escaped through tunnels and safe houses, this time there was no chance to run. He was captured without firing a shot, stunned, and escorted out in handcuffs under heavy guard. The capture of El Chapo was hailed internationally as a major blow to organized crime. Operation Black Swan did not end the Sinaloa cartel, nor did it stop the violence of the drug war, but it removed its most infamous leader from the battlefield. Guzman would later escape once more, tunneling out of a maximum security prison in 2015, only to be recaptured in 2016 and extradited to the United States. Operation Acid Gambit. Operation Acid Gambit was a little-known U.S. Special Forces mission carried out during the invasion of Panama in December 1989, a daring hostage rescue that tested the skill of Delta Force under fire. The target was Kurt Muse, an American civilian who had been arrested by Manuel Noriega's regime for running an underground radio station broadcasting against the Panamanian dictator. Imprisoned inside Cárcel Modelo, one of Panama City's most heavily guarded prisons, Muse was considered a political prisoner and a bargaining chip. When the United States launched Operation Just Cause to overthrow Noriega, freeing him became one of the first objectives. Delta Force operators planned a lightning raid. On the night of December 20th, as the wider invasion began, a team of commandos stormed the prison using helicopters to insert directly onto the rooftop. Blasting charges blew open access points as the soldiers rushed through corridors, overwhelming guards in seconds. Muse was located in his cell, stunned to see heavily armed men tearing the door open before whisking him to safety. The entire assault lasted only minutes, but it was one of the first missions of the larger operation, carried out simultaneously with airstrikes and combat across Panama City. The escape, however, nearly ended in disaster. As the Delta operators attempted to fly Muse out aboard an MH-6 Little Bird helicopter, the aircraft was hit by ground fire and crash-landed in the city streets. Pinned down and surrounded, the team fought a running gun battle until a relief convoy of armored vehicles reached them and pulled the men and Muse out under fire. Against the chaos of the wider invasion, the hostage was delivered safely into American hands. Operation Eagle Claw. Operation Eagle Claw was one of the most daring and disastrous missions in U.S. military history, a failed attempt in April 1980 to rescue American hostages held in Tehran during the Iran hostage crisis. The mission grew out of desperation after months of negotiations failed to free more than 50 diplomats seized when Iranian revolutionaries stormed the U.S. Embassy in November 1979. President Jimmy Carter approved a special operation to send American commandos deep into hostile territory, relying on secrecy, speed, and precision to bring the hostages home. The plan called for a joint force of Delta Force operators, Army Rangers, and Air Force and Marine pilots to infiltrate Iran using a complex series of aircraft movements. C-130 transport planes would carry troops and equipment to a remote desert landing zone, where they would rendezvous with RH-53D helicopters flying from the aircraft carrier USS Nimitz. From there, the combined force would move closer to Tehran, establish a forward hide site, and launch an assault on the embassy compound under cover of night. The hostages would be freed and flown out aboard the same aircraft, escaping across Iran before the regime could react. But from the beginning, the operation encountered crippling problems. Blinding sandstorms known as haboobs disoriented pilots and damaged helicopters, forcing some to turn back. By the time the convoy reached the staging point known as Desert 1, The number of operational helicopters had fallen below the minimum needed to carry out the mission. After tense deliberation, the decision was made to abort, but tragedy struck as the forces prepared to withdraw. A helicopter collided with a C-130 on the ground, erupting in flames and killing 8 servicemen in an inferno that illuminated the desert night. The mission ended in failure before even reaching Tehran. The burned wreckage at Desert 1 became a symbol of humiliation, broadcast worldwide and used by Iran to mock American power. Operation Gothic Serpent. Operation Gothic Serpent was the U.S. Special Forces mission in Somalia in 1993, launched to capture Mohammed Farah Aidid, the warlord whose militia was attacking United Nations peacekeepers and controlling aid supplies during a devastating famine. Authorized by President Bill Clinton, the mission was led by Task Force Ranger, a unit composed of Delta Force operators, Army Rangers, Navy SEALs, and helicopter crews from the 161st Special Operations Aviation Regiment. Their task was to strike at the heart of Aidid's command structure by capturing his senior lieutenants in the capital, Mogadishu. On October 3, 1993, Task Force Ranger launched a daylight raid against a target building near the Bakra Market. Fast roping from Black Hawk helicopters, Delta operators stormed the compound while Rangers secured a perimeter. The initial assault succeeded, with prisoners quickly taken, but Aidid's militia swarmed the streets in overwhelming numbers, armed with rifles and rocket-propelled grenades. Within minutes, one Black Hawk helicopter was shot down, followed soon after by another, transforming the mission from a swift capture into a desperate rescue. American forces fought block by block to reach the crash sites, holding defensive positions under constant fire. Soldiers ran low on ammunition, convoys were ambushed, and the chaos of Mogadishu's narrow streets turned the raid into one of the fiercest urban battles since Vietnam. 18 American soldiers were killed and more than 70 wounded, while hundreds of Somali fighters and civilians also died in the battle. Graphic images of dead U.S. soldiers being dragged through Mogadishu's streets shocked the world, fueling outrage at home and abroad. In the aftermath, U.S. forces were withdrawn from Somalia and the mission to stabilize the country collapsed. Operation Prime Chance. Operation Prime Chance was a covert U.S. Special Operations mission conducted during the late 1980s in the Persian Gulf, part of the larger conflict known as the Tanker War. At the time, Iran and Iraq were locked in a brutal war, and both sides attacked oil tankers to cripple each other's economies. When Iranian forces began targeting neutral shipping, including vessels carrying oil for the United States and its allies, Washington decided to secretly intervene. Prime Chance unfolded under the cover of night. U.S. Army helicopter pilots from Task Force 160, later known as the 160 Special Operations Aviation Regiment, operated from Navy ships disguised as civilian barges in the Gulf. The mission escalated in 1987 after the reflagging of Kuwaiti oil tankers under the U.S. flag, when Iran laid mines in international waters to deter American escorts. One such mine struck the USS Samuel B. Roberts, nearly sinking the frigate. In retaliation, Prime Chance units supported Operation Praying Mantis, the largest U.S. naval battle since World War II, which destroyed much of Iran's small navy. The helicopters and special forces teams of Prime Chance played a key role in detecting threats, neutralizing Iranian boats, and protecting vital oil routes. Operation Urgent Fury. Operation Urgent Fury was the American invasion of Grenada in October 1983. The small Caribbean island had descended into chaos after a Marxist faction overthrew and executed Prime Minister Maurice Bishop, plunging the country into a violent struggle for control. Concerned about the safety of nearly 1,000 American medical students on the island and the growing Cuban military presence, President Ronald Reagan ordered a swift intervention to restore stability and prevent Grenada from falling deeper under Soviet influence. Before dawn on October 25th, American forces launched a full-scale assault. Nearly 7,000 troops, supported by naval and air power, descended on the island from multiple directions. Army Rangers parachuted onto the Point Salines airfield, while Marines conducted amphibious landings on the northern coast. Special operations teams, including Navy SEALs and Delta Force, carried out raids to rescue hostages and secure key objectives. The invasion faced disorganized but determined resistance from Grenadian troops and several hundred Cuban engineers and soldiers who fought alongside them. The fighting was intense in places, especially around the airfields and the capital, St. George's. Miscommunication among the different U.S. branches led to friendly fire incidents and coordination problems, but the overwhelming American firepower quickly broke the defenders. Within 3 days, most of the island was under U.S. control. The coup leaders were captured, the American students were safely evacuated, and a new government aligned with the West was installed. Operation Urgent Fury lasted less than a week, yet it became a defining event of the 1980s. Thank you so much for watching this video, and if you learned something, make sure to leave a like. Subscribe if you would like to see similar videos. Thank you again, and goodbye.